Hello and welcome. I'm Al Barrows, and this is UFO Disclosure, the podcast that's meant to show an average person's reaction to all the UFO, UAP news from everywhere and anywhere. Today, I'd like to relate and comment on a story I found on KM Uncharted Mysteries. It involves a UFO-like craft that washed ashore in Japan in 1803 with one sole occupant. The vessel was only about 18 foot long and 11 feet tall, far smaller than the merchant ships or warships at the time. Its base was made of metal, its upper body was crafted from a lacquered wood, and its walls were lined with transparent glass panels joined together in a circular formation. It had the appearance of a meticulously crafted artifact, something built with clear intent and technical precision that the local villagers had never encountered before. From within the vessel emerged a strange woman. She stood roughly 5 feet tall, her skin so pale it seemed to glow in the morning sun, and her hair blazed a deep red like dried blood. She spoke a language no one could understand, unlike any Japanese dialect, and not even remotely similar to the tongues of the Dutch or Portuguese merchants who occasionally passed through the ports of Nagasaki. All the while, as she was surrounded by curious eyes, she clutched tightly to a wooden box about 2 feet long. Inside the vessel, there was drinking water, a small supply of dried provisions, and strange symbols etched into the wooden walls as if she had been deliberately prepared for this journey. Though the destination was clearly not part of any known plan, the villagers didn't know how to respond to her. They had never seen a human being quite like her before. And in a country where everything was governed down to the smallest detail, the sudden appearance of a foreign woman aboard such a bizarre craft was not just rare, it was something that placed the entire village on a delicate line between wonder and fear. As the villagers gathered around the vessel, unsure whether they stood before something sacred or something dangerous, the woman remained seated in silence, her arms wrapped tightly around the wooden box. From within the crowd stepped an elderly man, a village elder who had spent nearly his entire life on this very land. He gazed at the woman a long moment before softly speaking, saying that he had once heard of a story long ago that mirrored what now lay before them. It was the tale of a foreign princess who had dared to defy an arranged marriage in the name of true love. Her lover had been executed and sentenced to exile. According to the elder, the box she clutched so tightly might well contain the final remnant of that love, or a severed head. At those words, a chill crept down the spines of those present. They stood still, unmoving, as though they were witnessing a legend. The long day passed in silence in the village, and no one knew quite what to do with the woman. She was not a criminal, but neither could she be considered a guest. The village elders gathered in hushed deliberation. They understood that keeping her could lead to consequences they could not predict. At the time, Japan was under the Sakoku policy, a harsh and unforgiving form of isolationism. Any interaction with foreigners, no matter how small, was deemed a transgression. If the imperial court were to learn that a humble fishing village had harbored a foreign woman, the punishment could be severe. The entire village might even be erased from maps as a warning to others. One elder spoke solemnly. If this woman had truly been fated to drift between the waves, then returning her to the sea would be an act of mercy in itself. And so they resolved to send her and her vessel back into the ocean. The boat, now called Utsurro, Bune, or the hollow ship, was gently pushed into the open water. The woman remained exactly as she had been seated in silence, arms wrapped around her box. And then the current slowly carried her away as if she had never existed at all. So this story didn't just disappear into obscurity. What makes this legend of the mysterious woman and the Utsurro truly interesting to me is that it did not vanish into folklore. It was carefully and unmistakably documented in the historical records of the Edo period in Japan. Across the yellow pages of the 19th century, the tale appears not once, but in several distinct accounts. Oshu Saki, Toen, Chosetsu, Noiri. Each manuscript contains slight variations, as though the story had washed ashore on different lands, retold in different voices, and yet the core elements remain uncannily consistent. The strange circular boat, the red-haired woman, the incomprehensible language, and the box that no one was allowed to open. It didn't stop there. Japanese scholars of the 19th century began posing questions that even now remain unanswered. They asked where the vessel came from, who could have built it, and why would a craft so unusual appear in a nation that at the time was entirely sealed off from the outside world. Though the ancient records never explicitly state that the woman came from anywhere, her fashion was noted to be very similar to the fashion in Russia in that era, which was the era Catherine the Great lived in. She may have been Russian, or at the very least from a Eurasian culture. One of the earliest to propose this theory was Kokushi de Bakan, a Japanese scholar from the early 19th century. He had thoroughly studied every written account of the Utsurro Bune and compared them with the testimony of a Japanese sailor named Duyo Kairu, who had shipwrecked and lived in Russia for a decade. From 1782 to 1792, Duyo recalled having seen Russian women with red hair, clad and with thick coats trimmed with white fur and using handwritten symbols entirely unfamiliar to anyone in the East. He described the script as slanted, round, and flowing, something that many believe closely resembled the markings etched into the interior of the Utsurro Bune. Of course, these symbols did not match any known written system, not even Cyrillic. While the theory of a northern woman drifting to Japan has sparked much debate, there's also another myth in Japan that has been tied to this story. It's a story that's not often told, yet it's filled with startling parallels. It is the legend surrounding the origins of the Kono clan, an actual noble family that once ruled a significant portion of the island of Shikoku. According to ancient accounts, in the 7th century, a Japanese fisherman pulled a 13-year-old girl from the waves. She was found drifting alone across the open ocean in a hollow boat. She claimed to be the daughter of a Chinese emperor, pursued by a cruel stepmother, sheltered by the people of Eo province. She grew up and eventually married a local prince. The son they bore would go on to found the Kono clan, a family believed to carry royal blood from a distant land. The tale was regarded as a myth for a long time, but later scholars uncovered fragments of genealogical records, faded drawings that depicted a round vessel and a girl whose features did not appear entirely Japanese. And most strikingly, it was said to have occurred nearly 1,000 years before the Utsurro Bune washed ashore. The story is just odd overall, and some of the rumors connected to this folklore talk about extraterrestrials, because this was nothing like any vessels or mode of transportation that they had back then. And if this truly was a human woman, then she was a woman unlike any ever portrayed in the culture of the Japanese Edo period. In the historical text, the Utsurro Bune is described with such precision that it defies dismissal as mere folklore. Its base is specifically described as being dark polished metal, with its upper structure crafted from a lacquered wood, and along its walls were transparent glass panels, seamlessly joined in a circular array like a giant lens peering outward at the world. The vessel had no rudder or any means of propulsion. So this suggests that it was never meant to be navigated on the surface of the sea. At the time, the term unidentified flying object had not been conceived, and yet the illustrations in the ancient text of the Utsurro Bune found in the early 19th century manuscripts bear an uncanny resemblance to what modern humanity would come to recognize more than a century later as the classic flying saucer, or UAP. So eventually a new theory cropped up that perhaps this vessel had not come from another country, but from another planet. So I chose this story because it is so interesting that it just refuses to go away. It's one of those UFO reports that just keeps coming up, even though it happened over 220 years ago. Even today in Japan, there's a museum exhibit dedicated to the Utsurro Bune. I found this on the Asahi Shimbun online magazine, and it's an article by Keitaro Nihisaki entitled "Exhibit Shines Light on Visit by UFO-like Ship in the Edo Period." And you can see from the picture there that they're portraying the vessel very much looking like a UFO. But it pretty much follows the specifications from the ancient 19th century texts and drawings. The Joyo Historical Materials Museum right now is holding an exhibition titled Fushigi World Utsurro Bune, meaning Mysterious World of the Utsurro Bune. And it showcases around 10 items, including newly discovered documents. The exhibition focuses on the Utsurro Bune, not necessarily UFOs. It's up to the visitors to decide whether the Utsurro Bune was a UFO. So was the Utsurro Bune an actual UFO? Not sure. The story seems to not want to go away, and there is documented proof in those 19th century handwritten documents, actual drawings, and the drawings certainly depict it as looking like your typical UFO. I hope you guys enjoyed this. My name is Al Barrows. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks.